Welcome to my channel and welcome to a slightly overcast south of France. Now I'm here to drive this, the brand new Peugeot E-3008. But before I tell you absolutely everything you need to know about this car and whether you should be buying one, please do consider subscribing to my channel. The old 3008 was a bit of a game changer for Peugeot. It was the car that helped change Peugeot from a maker of cheap and uninspiring cars to ones with head-turning looks and a bit of an upmarket feel. But the 3008 never came as an electric version. This new one does. It's the first car in a whole new era of Peugeots to sit on parent company Stellantis' brand new electric car platform. It's called STLA. That's STLA, not the beer. And sitting within it are new batteries promising some impressive ranges. On the subject of looks, I think Peugeot has absolutely excelled. I love the subtle creases, the slim LED headlights, the three-claw day running lights and the aerodynamic wheels. I have to say, I really do like the design of this car. Now, a lot of electric SUVs at the moment, they appear to be quite dumpy, but this looks razor sharp. And one of the big changes between this and the previous car is the roofline. Now, Peugeot call this a Fastback. It's not a coupe SUV, and their reasoning for this is this line here. Now, in a coupe SUV, bear with me, I'm going to get a little bit technical, the cut point would be here, ahead of the rear passenger's head. But in a Fastback, the cut is here. So it allows more space in the back while still giving a really nice sloping roofline. And you would expect that sloping roofline to impact on boot room. But no, this is some magic and witchcraft is action here, because the boot is exactly the same size as it was on the old 3008. It's a really practical space as well, very wide, not much of a lip. There's a movable boot floor, which is fantastic, and I always love those. And there's also 40, 20, 40 split folding rear seats, adding an extra layer of practicality. In the back, and initial impressions are really very good. Despite that sloping roofline, you've got pretty good headroom, and what Peugeot say about where the cut point in the roof really makes sense, because I'm about 5'11" and I've got more than enough space for my head. These seats are also incredibly comfortable. I love the fabric, really springy. I like the rake on the seat base. You feel as though you could spend a long journey back here. But when you actually look a little bit closer, this is where things sort of go a little bit wrong for me. Firstly, the legroom. Now that seat is set up in my driving position, and I don't know, I just would have expected slightly more space for my knees. And also, whilst there is a flat floor back here, in theory, allowing you to carry 3 people back here, look how far this centre console juts out into the space. I think you'd probably have a moaning third passenger if you were taking them on the long journey. But I do like the fact that the quality up front is translated to the back. Now, speaking of the front, let's go and take a look. Now, the negative points from the back seats, I can almost forgive it, this car, because when you get up front, I mean, just look at it. I just think it looks amazing. And what with the screen positioned on top of the dashboard like that, it feels like you're sitting in a branch of John Lewis. It is so cutting edge, so modern, and so refreshingly different. Now that screen, just over 21 inches. It's a big development from Peugeot's iCockpit system, and in the past Peugeot have had these tiny little instrument binnacles, but now you get the full widescreen experience. It reminds me a little bit of the BMW iX, and the screens are really crisp and really clear, and Peugeot's latest infotainment system is featured, and it's much easier to use than before, although I would appreciate a little scroll wheel down here, because it can get a little bit complicated at times. Having said that, there are some shortcut buttons down here, which is really good. But the thing that really impresses me is the quality. Now, the previous Peugeot 3008 was a huge step up in terms of material fit and finish, but here they've just moved the game on again. I love the use of different materials. I love all this fabric everywhere. There's real aluminium inlays as well. The ambient lighting is very tasteful. It's reflected onto the aluminium strips, and at night it looks superb. Peugeot's latest small steering wheel, and I have to say, slightly condescendingly, Peugeot are improving this arrangement. In the past, you felt as though the steering wheel was always in the way of the dials. I don't get that in this new 3008. It's really well set up.
While there is no scroll wheel to control the infotainment system, there is Peugeot's iToggle system. This is a third screen with configurable widgets, shortcut buttons essentially. You can select pretty much everything really, from the heated seats to turning off the lane keep assist. It's brilliant. Overall, the interior is a triumph and it's very well equipped. But so it should be considering the asking price. E-3008 prices start at £45,850, while this GT model is just a few £100 less than £50,000. This is for the small battery single motor car, remember. The dual motor and large battery models are expected to cost even more. And for this kind of money, a heat pump shouldn't be a £700 option.
The only thing I find slightly questionable in here is this massive centre console. It looks great, especially with all the controls and this boomerang design, and it neatly separates the driver from the passenger. But when you've got an electric car built on a bespoke electric car platform, it allows you to do so much more with the space on offer. And here, I just feel really hemmed in. You do get more storage space, but I just feel it's a bit claustrophobic on this side. Now, Peugeot has some pretty sporty and thrilling cars in its back catalogue, but unfortunately the new E-3008 isn't one of them. Now, let me quantify that, because admittedly this is an electric family SUV. You probably wouldn't expect this to be a hair-raising driving experience, but I would appreciate just a little bit more involvement. So that's the top level. Let's bury down a little bit more into what I've just said. So let's start off with the good. Now, this car is incredibly quiet to drive. Yes, I know, electric cars, because they don't have an engine, are always going to be quiet, but you would be amazed at the number of electric cars that I drive where it's really quite noisy. As soon as you take the engine away, you tune in to other things such as tyre roar, wind noise, other little noises associated with the car. You don't get that with this car. The tyre roar is kept to a minimum, really. The wind noise is really good. It just sort of slips through the air really well, and it's just a very refined and comfortable driving experience. Now, this car, even though it's got 20-inch wheels, I have to say the ride is pretty good. On some really nasty surfaces, you do get that thump, that judder which you'd get from big wheels. You'd expect that. But overall, the ride is very well judged. The real test will, of course, be in the UK. But here in the south of France, all is good. Now let's move on to the things that are not quite so good. So firstly, the steering. Again, I feel a little bit bad criticising the steering feel in an electric family SUV, particularly cars these days which have all got electrical steering systems. It does seem a bit futile talking about feel and precision when you're just never going to get it. But I would have hoped for a slightly better engagement than you get in this E-3008. It does feel very remote. And one of the reasons why Peugeot fits small steering wheels to their cars is that it's supposed to promote this feeling of sportiness and precision, and when you turn the steering wheel, it's much smaller to turn, therefore it feels more engaging. Whereas previous Peugeots with this setup felt okay, this feels really quite remote, which is a bit of a shame. One thing I do have to say though, and I hinted at this earlier on, is I feel as though Peugeot have really nailed this iCockpit setup now. Small steering wheel and the screen up top. In the past, you always felt as though the wheel was getting in the way of the dials, obscuring your view. You don't get that in this. I think finally, Peugeot have nailed it.
This 73 kilowatt-hour single motor car has a range of 326 miles WLTP. There's also a dual motor car with 316 brake horsepower and, thanks to some witchcraft, manages the same 326 miles of range apparently. Considering this is the entry-level battery, that's going to offer so much to the average family buyer. But the really amazing bit is the larger 98 kilowatt-hour battery. That's basically double the battery size of any electric Peugeot up to now, and it means the E-3008 can manage a claimed 435 miles WLTP. Only the top-spec Fisker Ocean and Mercedes EQS better this. This is something family buyers have been crying out for, a usable 350 to 400 mile electric SUV. But we will have to wait for this though. It won't be arriving in the UK until late 2024, and I'll have to test it to see if it can get anywhere near that 435 mile claimed figure.
Now we're driving the 201 horsepower single motor car. There is a more powerful version coming. But I think this is probably going to be the best seller of the range, and performance is leisurely, let's put it that way. 0 to 62 takes just under 9 seconds. Again, I know out and out performance is not the raison d'etre of a family SUV, but I think at times this car feels just a little bit breathless. You've got to remember that this car weighs 2.1 tons. And it feels as though it could do with just a slightly more oomph at times. For the most part, the throttle response is very good. It's nice and linear, you don't get pinned back into your seat, and it's a nice, measured, linear feel. It's just at certain times, like on motorway slip roads, you would appreciate just a little bit more welly. It can feel a little bit lethargic at times.
As for efficiency, Peugeot says the E-3008 will better all rivals, including the Tesla Model Y. Now, during my drive, I averaged 3.7 miles per kilowatt hour, which is around 270 miles. Not that impressive, you might say, but the type of driving journalists do on car launches isn't always representative of how a usual owner would drive a car. I'll have to report back on this when I get a car to try in the UK.
Even though this car is not quite as thrilling to drive as it is to look at, this is a very refined, very accomplished, quality feeling electric SUV. And I have to say, I think Peugeot have to be applauded for that.
The Peugeot E-3008 is a deeply desirable electric SUV with a bold design, impressive battery options and an interior brimming with rich materials and good technology. While it has lost some of the old car's more agile handling traits, it's a plush and refined SUV that'll no doubt be up to the task of family life. It's pricey, but you may well think it's worth it.